instantly different trail.
Just wonderful.
Yeah. GDT is great, beautiful trail for people who want to do it as a through hike. Absolutely, knock yourself out.
Yep. Speaking of, I am going to be hiking the Great Divide Trail in 2022. So I've started my planning where it comes to doing all the proper research. So the big thing with the Great Divide Trail, which may be different than a lot of other through hikes that you've seen, the Pacific Crest Trail, the Appalachian Trail, the Continental Divide Trail, there's a lot more regulations in Canada. So there are many different permits I have to get, from overall backcountry general permit that you're going to need to the different national parks have their permits, and then even you have to go down to specific campsites. So at this point, we're in December right now. I've invited a friend to come along. We'll see if he's able to commit, and then some other friends maybe to join me for different sections of it. I have, as we go on through January, February, March, and April, I'm going to be highlighting things like my itinerary, the equipment I'm going to be taking, the different sections I'm going to be doing, and detailing about how long each day is going to be, how I plan on resupplying. The Great Divide Trail has about 7 stops where you can sort of get off trail to different resupplies. My plan is to have 5 of them. Stopping off in Field, or sorry, from the bottom to the top will be Waterton, Coleman, Field, Saskatchewan Crossing, and then finally Jasper.
So that's awesome. I kind of knew you were thinking of doing that. Thanks for not asking me, because I'm not. I'd slow you down. I'd slow you down. This guy's fast compared to me, and my days of doing 30-kilometer days are done. Are you? What's your target days? Or are you giving you? Are you? Because I think people go from 30 to 70 days. Are you going in between, or what are you thinking?
I'm aiming for 30 or 40 days on trail and 45 total, so 5 zeros. So
you're doing about 25-kilometer days at least.
It works to 29.5.
29.5. Yeah, those are hard days. Yeah, no. As Whalley just pointed out, logistically it's complicated. So reach out. I'll help you. When it comes time to booking all your campsites, if you have 3 or 4 friends that are all logging on at the same time, and you put somebody in charge of these areas and those other areas, hit your federal campgrounds first. Section
Rockwall,
E, Rockwall and Section E are bottlenecks, because what he's referring to is the Great Divide goes through Crown land, provincial lands, provincial campgrounds, provincial recreational areas, and federal parks. And in some of the areas, you need to not only do you need to reserve a site, but you need to reserve a site on a specific day.
Yes. So
it makes the although I've given this advice to many people, and I think it's worked out for them. We're getting a slight interruption by little Jasper in the background, but I heard somebody going after him. I hope that Canada will evolve to a GDT permit similar to the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Canada should give whatever, a $500 permit for 50 days and be flexible of where you can stay. But even though they don't do that formally, there's an unwritten code that if you can't, if you're scheduled to get to 4 points on the 25th and you get there on the 26th,
mm-hmm.
You know the rules. Nobody's gonna. You show up and announce yourself and take the worst campsite in the area, or ask somebody and share a pad with them, whatever. But
I think that as much as that everyone really worries about that on the Great Divide Trail, about getting all the permits in place, I think if you make the proper effort, if you pay the fees that you need to pay to the parks, if your schedule is slightly off because of a resupply or an injury issue, I've never met a warden who would be so punitive, I think, to actually ticket you. And yeah, I mean, I think as long as, and you're being respectful too, if you have a campsite where you're leaving your garbage out, if you're leaving your food out overnight, if you're not following the leave no trace principles, I absolutely imagine a warden would be nice and punitive towards you.
And it's not just even when you're doing the GDT, it's on any day. So that's a reality in Canada. So, let's stick to the Rockwall. You're doing the Rockwall. No, Rockwall's too short, but let's stick to the Rockwall. If your plan was to get to Numa Creek on day 2, but you don't get there until day 3 in Canada, be courteous. So if you show up there on the day that you don't have a permit for that day, let all the other campers show up and let them find their spot, and then you take the last spot if there's one, And if there isn't one, then you go around and you talk to people and say, listen, I should have been here yesterday, and I'm here today, and I'm just going to park my tent next to you guys and explain the situation. But that can happen anytime, not just on the GDT, because sticking to an itinerary is not always possible.
No, and especially people who've through hiked before, like the idea that you have to be in 36 days, you're going to be at that campsite, like it's just mind blowing to think about that level of planning. And I'm sure there are some through hikers on the G who do stick to such itinerary, but I know there's a bunch of them who don't as well.
Oh, I've met them on the trail. I've met people on the trail like that, and they don't even stop to talk to you. You know, they're like talking and they're going, I got to keep going. It's like, I got 35 kilometers to go. I'm like, wow, you got 35 kilometers. That's perhaps the other reason I don't really have the interest in doing the GDT or any through hike is I'm not. I don't like to be schedule driven when I'm in the backcountry.
It's one of the things too. When I started looking at this hike 8 years ago, the stories of the GDT being unmarked and being hard to follow through certain areas. I'll just say right now, Dan Durson has done a tremendous job organizing different teams to go out through the most difficult parts to flag things, to do switchbacks in different areas. And where I saw coming most recently for him, where it's now 95% of the GDT is on good proper trail, and even the other 5% is flagged. And
you're we went through a section this year that is still relatively unflagged. That's one of the
bad areas.
And you know, I've been going there on purpose for a couple of years now, trying to improve you improve it just by walking through it.
Yep.
You know, it leaving a odd cairn here and there, and it doesn't take a lot of time for a trail to get improved, but it also doesn't take a lot of time for a trail to fall into disrepair. You know, we saw Castlegar. You know, how tough was the last day of Castlegar? Yep. You know, that's Deadfall will slow you down. Holy smokes!
Yeah, and it's not something you can carelessly go over either. I mean, you have to pay attention when you're going over Deadfall. What you're saying? If you can't, say it. What is it?
Never step on something if you can go over. Never go over if you can go around.
Exactly.
And I'm generally referring to slippery rocks and roots. You know, those roots and the log. I mean, I see a branch across a trail, and you see a lot of people sort of carelessly just put one foot on there and then push off of it. Well, either you're going to slip across or break, and then you can twist an ankle. So my rule is don't step on a rock or a log or a root unless you have to. Go over if you can.
One thing just came to my head and I want to throw at you. You've been hiking with me this year, and I worked through trail runners versus boots. Do you think there's any trails in the future where you may switch over to trail runners instead of boots?
No, that's injuries for me. That's hockey. It's you know, I played hockey, and I always had skates, and I have one. I don't even know what this muscle is here, but it just twists too easily now in the ankle. So I've tried shoes. I don't feel comfortable in them.
Fair enough. So the reason I used trail runners instead of boots, it was the biggest conversation before I started my through hike on the Pacific Crest in 2018 was boots or trail runners, and every single person on the trail had trail runners. And what it comes down to really is speed. But Marty is right. He's highlighted the significant difference is injury prevention. I rolled my ankle 25 times in the first month and a half on the trail. But then after that, these muscles have built up to the point where I don't even notice a roll anymore. But you certainly have to build up to that point, and there's a risk getting up to that point of a significant injury.
Yeah, I mean, I've made comments on this. I would never presume to tell anybody what's best for them. You know, so if you want to hike in running shoes, hike in running shoes. You want to hike in boots. You want to be a ground dweller and sleep on a pad, or you want to be in a hammock. You know, for somebody to argue, it's a silly argument. It's, you know, that hammocks are better than it's an unwinnable. It's an impossible argument. There's no correct answer. Yeah. You want to wear merino wool because you love the wool. I love my fleece, and I have people say fleece is whatever. It's like, man, it's my personal choice. Yeah. You know what I sleep in. One walking stick, two walking sticks, no walking sticks. Like, who cares? You know, go out there and enjoy and discover for yourself. Definitely, I would never go watch a video and say, hey, Bob says that this is the best sleeping bag. No, it's an opinion.
Yeah.
It's an opinion.
Like so many things in life, hiking, all you really need is a heartbeat and 2 willing feet. And you can custom design your experience completely after that. You want to do scrambles, do scrambles. You want to walk rock fire roads because they're nice and easy. You can walk fire roads too.
And I admire people who just get out there with lousy gear and then rapidly learn and evolve. And some guys get really good at it and really fast.
I think some of the best conversations I've had is where amateur hikers have been in camp and then they see me set up. I arrive afterwards, set up, have my food ready, and they're still trying to get their tent up. And you can see them looking over. You don't want to intrude on their experience. But at a certain point, they almost always come over and, hey, can you help me with this? Or, hey, can you help me with that?
Yeah, and then even I seldom talk to people. Let me rephrase. I talk to people. I love talking to people, but I seldom walk over to somebody in a camp and say, hey, you could do better with the gear. No. If they came over to me and say, hey, I noticed that you didn't do this. How come? Perfect. But I'm never gonna go over and tell somebody, you know what, you could save a bit of weight by doing something different. Did it once. I did it once.
Yeah.
I did it once at Pinto Lake. These kids had brought, there was an old-fashioned bear pole up in the trees, and they had big rope, and they were throwing the rope over and whatever. For that one, I had I felt compelled. I walked over and I said, we took down the rope, I rolled it up, and then I had my little paracord that did the same job. I'm like, this is 10 pounds, this is one. I don't normally do this, but I think this is
a little bit better for you.
A little bit better for you, yeah. Or I've told people about really heavy stuff, like when somebody brings in the parking lot. You see somebody in the parking lot, it's like, you might not want to bring that cooler.
May not be the best thing. I know it sounds like a good idea.
It sounds ridiculous, but we've seen people in parking lots that start going down the trail with a cooler.
Well, how many people see us unloading out of ours, and we pull all the coolers out of our food, but we put them back into the car?
I've seen people with. I saw a group one time that had a Costco flat of like 12 water bottles. I'm like,
this was down at Big Bend, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's like, you know what? You probably want to leave that behind.
Fair enough.
Trust me, you can drink the water out of this creek.
Well, Marty, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, this was a pleasure, man.
Really
This was awesome.
It was a lot of fun.
Hi-ho, it's off to hike I go. Hi-ho, 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 hi-ho. It's off to hike I go. Hi-ho, 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 hi-ho.